Hello, welcome to my space station. Have you heard about the Berlin Airlift? Well, if you haven't, let me explain it to you today. So let's go back when World War II ended. In the peace negotiations, after World War II, Germany was divided into four sectors. One part was occupied by the Soviet Union, one by France, one by the UK, and one by the US. All of these shared equal claims. Now, the claims of France, US, and the UK were towards the West, and they united their claims into one West Germany, while the USSR, or consisted of the Soviet Union, was called the East Germany. Now in 1948, the Soviet Union, due to tensions with the Western powers, made the Iron Curtain and blocked people of East Germany from going into West Germany and West Germany going from East Germany. But now let's go on to Berlin. In Berlin, though laid fully in the Soviet territory, was also ironically split up. The same way that Germany had been split up. To the East Soviet Union, towards the West, it was West Germany. Now the Soviet Union also what they did was they blockaded the east part of Berlin from the west part of Berlin. So now people could not cross between them. So the blockade could not let any food, could not let any supplies, no cars, no trains, nothing could go through. Entirety of East Berlin was fully blockaded. Now East Berlin was blockaded, but along with that, the entirety of Berlin was also blockaded. Think of it this way: here is Germany. This part is occupied by the Soviet Union. Now, inside the part occupied by the Soviet Union, there is a part of the Allies. So there is a sort of a country inside of a country. So West Germany inside of East Germany. So now since all of the roads were blocked, the train were blocked, supplies could not get through, and the people in West Berlin will suffer. They would be famished. There would be no food coming through, and they would eventually rebel against the Allied powers, and that would show that Allies are weak. They're not getting to control West Berlin too much. So the UK and the US made a solution to this. Now the cars and the trains the Soviet Union could block. Yes, they can just put a barrier. The cars cannot go through. They can blow up the railroads. The train won't go through. But one thing which you cannot stop are planes. Now, the only way to stop, you can't just put a barrier in the sky. The only way to stop a plane is to shoot it down, which is an act of war. The Soviet Union did not want to risk going to war with the West. So the West used this to their advantage. They got many of American C-47 and different British planes. What they did was they put supplies in it and they flew those supplies to West Berlin. So there were also very less airfields in West Berlin, so the planes had to get wherever they could land, they had to land. Now the reasons they had to do this was, as I mentioned, the West Berlin population would be very famished. Another reason was that it would show that the Allies are very weak, and the third reason was that it would prove that the Soviet Union was a dominant power in Europe, which the US and UK would not accept. So that is why they did everything they could to reach the target supply, which was 5,000 tons per day. Eventually, from 80 flights per day, the flights reached their expected volume, which was 2,000 flights per day, and around 5,000 tons of supplies reached West Berlin. Now, eventually, after an year, now the Soviet Union could do a lot to counter them. They could shoot it down, but they were not risking war. They were harassing the planes, calling them very weak, but the pilots didn't mind. They kept going. And West Berlin received the amount of supplies which it had never. 2.3 million tons of supplies reached West Berlin. West Berlin had never received this much supplies ever, and so the people were happy. Now the Soviet Union was also sort of let down by this. They were trying to show themselves that they were dominant over Europe, and now they were outsmarted. So what they did a year later, in 1949, they lifted the blockade. And they let the cars and the trains go through. So that, okay, please stop this airlift. We will let the trains go through and the cars go through. And in response to that, the US and the UK immediately stopped the airlift, knowing that Berlin had been saved from a famine and a possible ousting of power. Now, what did this mean for the Soviet Union and the rest of the powers? This came to show that the Soviet Union was no longer dominant in Europe, and now the democracies play the game. It proved that blocking roads, blocking trains, and making sure that people did not get the supplies they need was just an unhumanitarian crime, and that the countries would do anything they can to make sure that the people don't suffer for something they didn't do at all. This also proved this also made the tensions between West Berlin and East Berlin, and the tension between the Soviet Union and the Allied powers more tense, which would eventually lead to the building of the Berlin Wall. But that's a topic which I will discuss in a later video. So this is all for today, and I'll see you next time.